And that's also going to be the case for South Asia. That is not going to be the case for the next year, okay? Now the reason is because basically in order for us to grow, we need to first have quality and consistency in the hubs that we have, right? So my strategic focus for the next year for this region is that we get the outcomes to where they need to be for all of our hubs. And if I can get all of your help to help get those outcomes to where they need to be, then the year after that we'll be ready to grow, right? So if you have ideas for new cities where we can build hubs, if you have ideas for people in your networks that can be founding curators, send it to me. I'm going to put it into a folder that I will check next year. And if you can all help me get our outcomes to where they need to be, we'll focus on expansion in year 2, okay? So what are those outcomes that we need to get to? We've basically codified them into 5 things, which are values, purpose, engagement, diversity, and impact, all right? What does it mean? Values, as I said, every single shaper should be able to understand all five of the values of this community. Purpose, right? There's a lot of different reasons that people join the shapers community, right? And they're all valid to some extent, right? Some people are joining because they want to make new friends and get outside of their own circle. Some people are joining because they want to work on impact projects. Some people are joining because they want to represent the voice of the younger generation. It's important that shapers are joining for the right reasons, right? And so what purpose is really all about is making sure that the people that are joining this community are here primarily for the mission and objectives of this community, right? Now, as you know, we do have events and shape events, Davos, all these other things that maybe you may have the chance to go to. But what I will say right now is that if anybody joined this community because they wanted to go to Davos, this is not the right community for you, okay? If you joined this community because you wanted to go network with famous people and meet Bill Gates and give your business card out to people, this is not the right community for you, okay? This community is first and foremost about having impact locally. And then yes, as a bonus, some of you may have the chance to go to events, but this community is 6,000 people in size. Every year, we may have around 300 people who will get to go to a regional summit, excluding ACM, right? So basically, based on the structure of this community, most people will not have the opportunity to go to an event. And so I need to create an experience for you guys that makes this meaningful as a standalone experience being in your hubs, and it is not dependent on coming to a global event, all right? So purpose, really, really important. We need to make sure that we're building the right culture, that people, once they're here, understand what this community is about. And it's also important for us when we recruit people, to recruit people who are coming here for the right reasons. And in some cases, and I hope it won't happen, but let's be realistic, it does happen. And many of you have had to kick shapers out of your hubs, right? It's happened. And if people are not here for the right reasons and they're not changing sort of their cultural mentality, maybe we have to ask them to find a community that better suits their interest. Engagement. Right? So this is really all about those different engagement points, right? So in your hubs, we want you to be active. We want you to be, meeting locally with your hub. We want you to find ways for you guys to engage with other members, like the YGLs and the Schwab Foundation. This is really all about seeing high levels of activity amongst people in the hub. Diversity. I think one of the things that we have seen in some of our hubs in this region, and also in other parts of the world, is hubs that actually don't represent the young people in their communities, right? So there's sometimes a tendency where people will kind of bring people in from their own networks to join, and so it becomes kind of a group of friends that were already friends before they joined. Or it can be, people who come from all of the same sector, or people who are coming from the same kind of socioeconomic status of society. And I think we need to really challenge ourselves to make this a community not just of the elite or not just of the upper middle class, but to make this a community that really represents everybody, right? So minorities, different sectors, working class, middle class, everybody. And so that's going to be something that I'll be pushing us to and challenging us in the region to strive for. Final one is impact. Impact, obviously, we want you guys to all have hub projects. But it's not enough in South Asia that we just have a hub project. We need to have hub projects that are both quality and also that are having impact at quantity. The official guidance that you get in our charter is that you need to have one hub project that is impacting the life of at least one person, and I've shared this with some of you before. That is not ambitious enough for South Asia, okay? So in South Asia, at a minimum this first year, I want to challenge all of us to have, I don't care how many hub projects it is, but to at least be impacting the lives in a meaningful way of 100 people. And that to me is even not ambitious enough. So in year 2 and year 3, I want to challenge us to even go more than that. But at least in year 1, let's aim for 100 lives. And if you do better, even better. On top of all of this, so the question then is like, okay, so here are the goals. How are we tying this all together? What is supporting all of this? The first thing is data. I'll share with you a little bit about this, but I think for us to hold you guys accountable and for me to hold myself accountable to these outcomes, I need to have an objective way through data to tell the story of how our hubs are doing. And I'll share with you, what we've basically done is we've developed a system where we'll quantify all 5 of these things. I'll share with you on the next slide what that looks like. Platforms, right? So data is good because it allows you to know where the strengths and weaknesses are, what we have to focus on. But then it's also my job to create platforms for us to close some of those gaps. Sometimes I get questions from shapers saying, how do I have great hub projects? Or, you know, what is the best way to recruit? And my answer to them is consistently 3 words: I don't know, okay? I don't know all the answers. I'm not an expert. I've never been a curator of a Shapers Hub. But you know who has? People right here in this room. So my job is not to tell you the right answer to things. My job is to create a better way for you to find the information that is already here in this community that you guys all have, and to help find a way for that information to get from who has it to who needs it. And so we're thinking constantly about what are some of the platforms that we can create to enable a better exchange of information so that we can share best practices, raise outcomes across the board. And if you want, we can chat later if we have time during this session or in the hallway about some of my thinking around what these platforms could be. And of course, if you guys also have ideas on this to contribute, we are more than happy to hear that. And the final thing is, Shapers' own responsibility. I have had numerous people, I think some of you in this room have even come up to me over the past few months and shared with me some of the challenges that you face. And you know, things like, how do I kick out a shaper who's underperforming? I can't do it for you, right? We need shapers at a local level to take responsibility for certain things, right? So if you have people in your hub that are not fulfilling the purpose of the community, if you have projects that you feel are not impactful, we need your help on a local level to really push for the change that we need and to make sometimes very hard and uncomfortable decisions for the better of this community and for the better of the constituents and beneficiaries in the general population that we hope to serve, okay? So to wrap up, what is this whole data thing all about? Okay, so here is, I don't expect you to be able to read everything, but basically what I've done is we have codified here at the top what are some of the key metrics that we will be using to understand hub engagement, values, diversity, and all of these different things. There are some additional metrics that we've developed since this one. So in the next iteration of this, there will be a couple of other data points as well. But the idea is basically that we will send out a quarterly survey to every shaper in the world. We will take the answers. Your answers are confidential, and the only person that will see them will be me and my team on an individual level. But what we will do is that we will aggregate the responses per hub and create a dashboard that looks like this, right? So basically, we'll have every hub here vertically, and it'll tell us an average score for how each hub is doing. Some of the data that comes from this will come from the survey. Others of it lives in our IT system, salesforce.com, which we can manipulate. And basically, what this will then allow us to do is create a bunch of reds and greens. Reds are basically areas that fall below target. Greens are areas that are really doing well. And so what we can do through this is basically map out all of the hubs that are strong in certain things, all of the hubs that have improvement needs in certain areas, and then I can easily figure out who is able to help whom, right? So if I know that this hub has overall great experience, this one is doing great on diversity, I know that I can connect them with some of these hubs that are lagging on the diversity side, right? So that's basically what we're trying to do, is being able to really map out how our hubs are doing. And to come back to this point about how do we know when we're ready to grow, When I see a lot more greens up here instead of reds, that's when I know we're ready to grow. Okay? So that's what I need all of your help on to help me do. So my ask to you guys is a few things. The first is to fill out these quarterly surveys. I know we get a lot of surveys, and my goal is to make your life as simple as possible. So we've developed a survey that has only around 10 questions. We've tested it out with my colleagues and with some shapers. It takes no more than 5 minutes to fill out, okay? So when I send out the ask, I want to ask as many of you as possible to please take like 5 minutes. You can do it on your phone. It's super easy. It's all multiple choice. And so please do it, and please do it quickly so that we can analyze the information. And what we'll do is the aggregated information, basically what you see here, we will share back with the shapers, okay? We won't say who gave what score individually, but as an aggregate, it is important that every shaper in the hub will know how their hub is doing so that you guys can collectively identify the issues, work on interventions and implementing ideas to help address these. And then next quarter, we'll do this again so that you'll have regular data to help you see what kind of progress you're making and what the issues continue to be. The second thing I want to ask for all of you is to ask if you need help. Okay, so if you do have questions on impact or how to make a better recruitment process, feel free to ask me and to ask each other. We have a WhatsApp group that around half of the community is on. We have a toppling group that everybody is on. Don't feel like you have to solve these problems yourself. The answer to every question you have exists with somebody in this room and somebody in the community, so ask for help. The third is to encourage a culture of honesty, openness, and constructive opinions for continuous improvement at the hub level, okay? If somebody in our hub is critical of the way things are, that's okay. We don't want to shut up people who are not happy with the state of affairs. As long as self-criticism is productive and constructive, welcome it. Have a culture that accepts it. Listen to people and think about a way to make things better. Share your ideas, innovations, and new solutions on any element of how we can enhance the shaper experience. I want to thank you guys because a lot of you over the past few months have been doing this already proactively. You pull me over and say, oh, Ravi, I have a great idea about this or that. Can we try this or that? We need more of that. I don't have all the answers. So if you have new innovations that you want to propose, if you have an idea for a different data point to help us understand some of these metrics, tell me about it. I'm really open. I want to engage with you guys. You guys already work in incredible startups and big businesses, NGOs. You're doing incredible things, and probably a lot of you have been tackling similar issues to some of the things that we're working on in this community. So my door is always open. Please pull me aside anytime. I want to hear the best and brightest ideas that you guys have as well. And finally, do your best. I expect no less. A lot of you are entrepreneurs in this room. We know that a part of getting to success is failure, and that's okay, all right? But I don't expect everybody to always, everything is gonna always work and there's never gonna be any issues, but I do expect us all to try our best. So thank you guys for that. I think that brings me to the end of my presentation. So I don't know, the organizers, do we have any time for questions or 10 minutes? Okay. So 10 minutes, I can take some questions, and then of course if we have more questions, we can take those after in the hallway or during breaks.
Thank you for the insights, Ravi. Ravi, we would want to encourage people to use toppling, but is there a similar tracker which is going to help you understand or identify how our shapers doing what on toppling?
Testing, yes. So the answer to that is yes. It doesn't exist yet, but it is actually something that we're developing. So within our team, I'm actually working on a data task force, and we're trying to understand as much as we can about the community through data. TopLink is one of them. So we have already the data. We want to be able to understand things like how much people are logging into TopLink, when was the last time they logged into TopLink, how much are people posting on TopLink. We will in the next few months also roll out a functionality, I told you about this yesterday, around hub projects, where you'll actually be able to put your hub projects onto TopLink. So we will be able to allow every shaper to see what are all the hub projects in the world on different issues. We're also working, I think this is a longer term development, but we also want to capture richer information on the projects, right? So we want to understand through this data the number of beneficiaries, but also what is the time it takes to completion of a project? What is the success rate over projects that are started to projects that are finished? What is the failure rate of projects in the hub, right? And so we'll then hopefully be able to extract from TopLink a lot of very rich information that will help us to understand impact in an even more sophisticated way than what we have right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Going once? Up.
Thank you. Ravi, if you could just discuss what ideas you have for inter-hub communications. I think that would be something a lot of people would be interested in, the kind of ideas that you have and the kind of ideas that you've probably heard from people in the room. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is a very important one. So we were chatting about this yesterday, so I think you know some of my answers. But look, so in terms of inter-hub collaboration, right? So I think the first question is why, right? Why do we want to foster inter-hub collaboration? For me, there's two main reasons. The first is if we can have greater impact together, that is an argument for inter-hub collaboration. The second is all of this stuff around sharing of best practices, right? So we know that certain hubs have certain strengths. Other hubs can benefit from those strengths. So how do we, through collaboration between hubs, help to close that information mismatch, if you will, right? And then the third, of course, is that we are a community, right? Yes, you are a community at the hub level, but the more that we can do between hubs to foster collaboration, it strengthens the brand, it strengthens the sort of spirit of the community. And so actually it's three things, those three things that are important. So what are the ways that we can do this? A lot of different things have been kind of bubbling up in my head. I'll share some of them with you. If you have feedback, please let me know. So one idea is through digital tools, right? So we currently already have a webinar series. Some of you may have attended this in the past couple of months. I want to kind of use that digital platform a little bit differently, right? So rather than having webinars where we just have a couple of experts sharing their thoughts on different issues, why not actually have a kind of virtual open space on different topics, right? So we could have a virtual open space on best practices on hub engagement, right? Or how do you build strong cultures for impact in your hub? And anybody who's interested can come in. There isn't necessarily like one person in the room who has all the answers, but through kind of peer-to-peer process of learning, we can facilitate greater interaction and also greater communication across hub lines. We could also do something like this on topics, right? So we can have all the shapers interested in artificial intelligence or all the shapers interested in education and have discussions through a virtual space like this. So this is one idea. The second idea is to have smaller sub-regional events that take place within different countries, right? So one of the things we've found is that the most engaged shapers are the ones that have actually come to some kind of official event, whether it's India Summit or a SHAPE event. And I think as we push for a more diverse community, where we increasingly also have people from more humble origins and working class backgrounds, not everybody has the means to go to all these international conferences. And so what I've been thinking about is like, how do we create an experience somewhat similar to the ACM experience, if anybody of you have been to that, but to do it so that more shapers have the chance to learn about those things and to have that experience, and not just the curators. So the idea that I've talked to some of you guys about is maybe next year, and again, this depends a lot on approval and budget and timing, but maybe we could have sub-regional events. So in India, for example, an event in the west, an event in the south, an event in the east, an event somewhere in the north. And we can invite hubs that are in close vicinity to all meet in a certain place. And we have just a short one-day program to help communicate key messages about the community. We'd have a community manager come to lead some exercises on values and culture and impact and some other discussions and community building things. So this is another idea that's been sitting in my head. From a cost perspective, it's actually better for me too, because it means that I can cut my trip in India to half as long. Not that I don't like being in India, I do. But if I can come here for 5 days instead of 10 days, and we can have twice as many shapers have this experience, I think that's what we should do. And right now, it's basically I fly to Hyderabad, I fly to Bangalore, I fly to Mumbai, and there's 36 hubs in this country. I can't go to everywhere. But if I can go to 4 places and we can have shapers from nearby, take a bus ride for a few hours, which I understand in India is not that long, we can do that. And basically cut down cost and basically reach more people. So why not? It makes a lot of sense. So those are some of the things that we've been thinking about. And then the final one is a common hub project on impact. I sent you all a survey before I came here with a couple of shortlisted projects. And those shortlisted projects were all identified because of the ease of replicability, the low cost of implementation, and a very simple and easy to replicate model. And so one of the things I would love to see is for us to adopt at least one project that will be common across hubs that we would execute together as a South Asian Global Shapers family. And we can have touch points every 2 or 3 months, basically a conference call, to share how every hub is doing on the same project. And because you may have certain challenges, you may have certain best practices to share, but it provides another medium for that cross-hub communication and collaboration because you all have a shared purpose and a common goal on impact as well. So one of the things we'll do tomorrow is I'll reveal actually the outcome of the vote that you all did, and you will be able still to do whatever other hub projects you want on on the local level, but I will share the one common one that we will ask and encourage every hub to adopt. So these are some of the things that have been bubbling in my head that we're starting to execute towards. And again, if you have other ideas on how do we foster inter-hub collaboration, happy to hear it.
Ravi, my question is around the advisory council. It's one of the major things that has happened in the forum recently. Can we take some time to talk about that? What do you expect from the advisory council? How should shapers look at advisory council? I know at least 2 members representing here. What discussion can we have in this forum to strengthen this council that we have created and make sure that it lasts, it creates impact?
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, when the elections for advisory council were happening, it was also the first election for us. Maybe it was the first election for everyone. But I wasn't very clear about how. So there was a quota. I tried to read through things. There was a quota across, like we want these many people in this committee from this region. What did that mean for elections in general? Like, if there's just more, if you could throw more light on that, like how that process worked, in general, that'd be very helpful for the next steps.
So does everybody know what the advisory council is? Who doesn't know? It's okay if you don't know. All of the new people know, except for him? Okay, that's more like it. Okay. So the advisory council is a new body that's been created. Basically, we have councils on a couple of key issues, so things like impact, engagement, values, governance, alumni. And basically what happened was there was a process of elections, right? So people were able to put out their candidacy to be on any one of these councils. There was an election process. That process is now concluded, and so we have the composition of who's on every council. The broad objective of this council is to try to provide meaningful advice and support on the theme of that council, right? So engagement, values, etc. The election process, everybody had a chance to vote, and then for diversity reasons, for every council we tried to have at least one person from every region. We also tried to mix up countries, right, within the region. So there were certain cases where we had two people who had very high number, like the top 2 vote winners on from South Asia on a council, but they were both from India. So then we picked somebody from Bangladesh or Pakistan, to make sure that no council has people from the same country. So that's basically the process that we went through to select. And I think now where we're at is actually we have kind of high-level objectives for each council, and we now need to actually get to the stage where the councils decide what's next, right? So to your question, what we're actually doing is convening the councils now on conference calls, where we'll actually get input from you guys on what you see as the key work streams around engagement, for example. right? Or what do you see as the key pain points and impact? And then to determine what exactly is going to be the working plan, right? What are the deliverables, if you will, for each advisory council? I'll share with you my personal view on this, which I've shared with my colleagues as well. But I think I think the advisory councils, first of all, is a huge opportunity for us, right? As we talk about growing as well, we have to think about how do we create a more scalable way to service 50% more hubs in South Asia in 3 years. And so I see the advisory councils as an opportunity for us to actually amplify our ability to service the Shapers community. So my dream would actually be if we could have the advisory councils play almost an execution role on some of these things, right? And again, this comes to the fact that, if I get a question on impact, I'm not an expert, but the advisory council is, right? So I would love to see if we can find a way for the advisory council to help provide more timely interventions on the ground, to take a strategic look at some of the metrics that tell the story of our hubs. All of the metrics that we actually designed in that previous slide, each one actually also rolls up to an advisory council. So what we can do is take all of the engagement metrics and feed them to the advisory council, right? All the impact metrics go to the impact advisory council. So you guys in the advisory councils have a strategic overview of how every hub is doing on your issue, and then I hope we can find ways to actually provide timely intervention to address those issues. I think the final piece of the puzzle, and this is not official yet, this is my personal idea, the alumni community. I think it would be fantastic if we can actually have the alumni community work in concert with the advisory councils to provide some of these interventions, because they're actually there in the city where every hub is. And so the alumni value proposition is also something that's being developed right now. There's still a lot of questions around it, but that's also an idea and feedback that I've been providing to my colleagues, is to see if we can strengthen the linkage between the two things. Are we out of time? Any last burning question? Otherwise, we can move on. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Anytime. Pleasure. And like I said, if you have ideas, if you want to critique any of this, if you want to validate any of this, please pull me aside anytime in the next, 2 days. But I'd really love to hear what you guys have been thinking, okay? Thank you all so much, and I guess I hand it over now to... All right, to Ishan.
We'll give us 5 minutes. I think we'll be setting this up and we'll start with the first panel. So just 5 minutes. The tea is being served, so we can start with the tea as well. Thank you.